evening, ladies and gentlemen. You've got Headband Corey here with you tonight. We're going to have a great show. Fantastic show. Huge show. It's going to be beautiful. Nobody does it better. We've got NBA conference finals, Stanley Cup conference finals. We're going to be talking NFL way too early power rankings, all that and more here on The Generous Degenerates. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on all social media platforms and wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get it going.
This is The Generous Degenerates, presented by Rally Towel Sports.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to The Generous Degenerates. I'm Headband Corey. With me tonight is Aaron, as always.
Who's also rocking the headband, by the way.
Headband Aaron. Headband. We're Joe Burrow sets trends. I don't know. We just follow.
Yeah. It's just I wanted my hair out of my face tonight.
No, we've got a fantastic show. Again, we are presented by Rally Towel Sports and the Mafia Sports Report. Make sure you subscribe to both the channels on YouTube. We appreciate Tommy and the Mafia Sports Report for syndicating this beautiful program out to Bill's Mafia. And we appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. It's going to be a good one. We had a pretty good week, or at least you had a pretty good week, Aaron.
Great week.
Cleaning up on some PGA action?
Absolutely. Our boy Xander, although he did not win, he did his best to make me not look like an absolute fool, clearing my plus 1040 bet of having Brooks, Hovland, Xander, and Scheffler all finishing in the top 20. And funny enough, there with 3 of the 4 there, I had win, play, show of 1, 2, and 3. So that felt pretty damn good to call those ones out.
Yeah.
And Tyler Hatton, that was one of the big ones I had was
Tyrell Hatton. Yeah.
Yeah. I had him to finish in the top 10 where I did that at half a unit, but then I did 2.5 units on him finishing in the top 30. He started Thursday with a +6, and I keep all my bets tabbed in an Excel sheet. I wrote loss down on Thursday. I was like, that's over. That's fine. Let's chalk it up. Let's see because I want to know where I was at.
Where are you going to be? Yeah. What do I got to hedge to get out of this?
My boy came back and made it interesting. So we shouted a couple of these out on the pod, but we had a group 3 ball of Scotty, McIlroy, and Rahm. Obviously, Scotty tying for second there, beating both McIlroy and Rahm. I called it from the beginning. I said, just don't touch Rahm this week. Next major after the Masters of him winning, he almost missed the cut. And frankly, had himself a pretty bad day. We had Cam Smith in the top 20 at plus 150. We had a pretty good time, my friend. Pretty good time.
No, you did great, man. And I remember you texting me just like, hey, how are you doing on the PGA? Like, I knew that probably meant that you were doing well.
I was doing good. I was just,
and immediately I want to apologize. I didn't give you the opportunity or the platform rather for you to really relish in that moment. Cause I was like, no, fuck the PGA Tour. I don't want to talk about it. I'm grilling meat and drinking bourbon is basically my response to you.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we had a good week, and then it kind of sprungboarded me a little bit. We had the Nuggets, or what was it? The Celtics Heat over hit later that night.
Yeah.
Hit a little same game parlay in that one as well.
Yeah.
Sunday was a good day for me.
Good for you, man. Proud of you. Proud of you. We've got a lot of action going on in the conference finals, both NHL and NBA. But before that, I want to get into a little bit of football because I mean, at the end of the day, that's really
Taste it.
it's our hearts, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Rookie camps going. You got some of the veterans getting in there and throwing balls to
Tight
wide
spirals on
receivers.
social media.
Oh yeah, just crushing social media, dude. When the quarterback is not being rushed, doesn't have to wear a helmet or shoulder pads, and there's no one guarding the wide receiver, they're pretty fucking accurate. You know,
They're good.
they're really good.
They get
Really
paid the
good.
big bucks. Yeah, man. Football's definitely around the corner, and like you said, this is definitely, the part in our hearts for sure. Where that's our bread and butter. We love talking about everything else. I know you're a big hockey fan. I'm a big basketball fan. We can certainly chalk it up with the best of them. But when it comes to football, that's where the minds meet.
Bobby liking the stream. I appreciate you, Bob, and I appreciate you, Aaron, saying I'm a big hockey fan. I'm working on that. I want to be a really good hockey fan. That's like a goal of mine.
Yeah,
is just to be that guy that can just rattle off the 10 best players in the league. I'm not there yet. But right. I'm having a fun fucking time watching hockey. That's for sure. Hola, gentlemen, says Bobby in the chat. Bobby, what's going on, big dog? If you guys are hanging out with us tonight, make sure to drop up in the chat. Tell us we're stupid. Tell us you agree with us, whatever. Just say hello. How are you? I hope you had a good day. Those things are lovely for us to hear. A goal of yours, says Bobby, pun intended. No, but that's fantastic.
He's lighting the lantern.
Yeah, I'm lighting the lamp over here. Big time. Awesome. Well, let's get into the real thing that we love to talk about.
A fun gimmick we did last year where, we were like, I don't know, there's a lot of time between here and football, but we've had, of course, free agency is pretty much wrapped up. There's obviously some names out there, but they're out there for a reason because they don't want to go to training camp. So they'll sign, maybe when it's convenient for them. Sure. There's a couple trades out there, like, maybe like DeAndre Hopkins or somebody like that I think could be a domino that falls eventually. But of course, we're now post-draft as well. And I think this is the part in time where rosters are starting to take fold, but also from a gambling perspective, we're starting to see lines out there. You're seeing some over-unders. It's still too early for me to play that stuff. Yeah. You can bet week 1. I'm not doing that.
You can bet week 17 in some places.
Right, exactly. So for that, I'm holding off a little bit, but I think it's never too early to talk about the way too early power rankings for the NFL.
I almost, when I was creating getting the board ready for the show, I almost said mildly too early power rankings, just to poke a little fun. But this is just insanely too early, and we're gonna have fun with it. We're gonna argue about things that don't matter yet, and it's gonna be great.
I love that.
So what I think I was thinking about doing, we're gonna do top 12, right? We're gonna do the top 12 power rankings for the NFL. And what I think I want to do, I want to start at 1.
Oh, you want to start at 1?
I think there's more. I think there's more argument to be made about teams like at the fringe, like about which teams are better to get into the top 12. And I'm not sure why we landed on 12. Aaron, if you could justify that.
I think it's quite honestly, I think it's just it's an easy round number. You could maybe argue that we should be doing 14 because that's the playoff teams now that it's 7 and 7.
Fair. Or 10, like top 10. That's
10. But I think 12 makes it more. It allows. I think it's pretty easy to do the top 3. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Doing the top 6 it's starting to get, once you start to spread it out further. There's going to be differences of opinion for every number that you add on top of it.
I agree. And I would also
while also
say,
not making this a 2-hour shout fest.
I would also say that the gap between the top 1 versus 3 is much smaller than the gap between 4 versus 6, or maybe even
probably
7 versus 9.
Easy to do.
Yeah, 1 through 3. I'm with you on that. So without further ado, I think let's get into your top 3. Give me your number 1 team coming into this season?
So number one's it's the Chiefs. It's Kansas City, and as long as Pat Mahomes is alive and he's got Kelsey, he's got Andy Reid, starting the season not in the top 3 in any season seems impossible to me. They're the defending Super Bowl champions. They deserve to be here in May. We can adjust these lists maybe in week 2 or 3, but
Sure.
going into the season and especially in May, they absolutely deserve to be number 1. Will they have the same urgency this year? I don't know, but I don't think they had the same urgency last year, and they still, came through towards the end. They seemed more beatable than years past, I would say, this past season. So we'll see how that goes. I really like what I saw out of Pacheco going into the end of the season and in the playoffs. I think that adds a different wrinkle to the offense where, of course, you have Kelsey, of course, you have Mahomes. But there's no reason to dethrone them at this point. I'm not going to dethrone the champs this far out from the season.
It makes sense. I'm right in line with you as well. I got the Chiefs at number 1 for a lot of the same reasons. No need to hash through that. I think in between 2 and 3, we could be splitting hairs here a little bit. But I'm interested into your why for your 2 and who you got.
I have the Eagles. I think, here we are 1 and 2. We're going to take the 2 Super Bowl teams. They took everyone from Georgia in the draft. They added Rashad Penny, obviously DeAndre Swift. They added Jordan Davis. They added Nolan Smith. I quite honestly believe that the Eagles backups as a team could make this top 12 list. I think from a roster standpoint, I think they're the deepest in the league at every position. And the reason that they're 2 to me, Corey, and I think who number 3 is going to be, is because of how easy their path back to the Super Bowl is. It's a much easier path on the NFC side than it is on the AFC side. And quite honestly, I already have some money down at it, plus 850. Good number for me. That's also the bet I have my Nuggets at. They're my pick to win the Super Bowl. And it's based on roster and it's based on path.
So you're not. So I guess there is a little bit of discrepancy in terms of how I made this list. Like I wasn't thinking about. I was just thinking about like in a vacuum, which team is better. I think clearly the Eagles have an easier path to the playoffs. Let's just leave it at that. The playoffs, right? Sure. That's the first goal of every team is to get to the playoffs. Then I think the number 1 team does. And I think just because being in the AFC, and then who I think we're going to both say is the number 3 team, who is the team that I had at number 2. And
that's fine. And that's fair. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's just like how we argue MVP or most improved player. Or
well,
like that.
And let me ask you this.
Set rule.
You had mentioned their roster. You had mentioned their roster and the depth of their roster. You're not concerned at all about that secondary?
No, not
a lot of people walked away from the Eagles this year.
Yeah, a lot of people walked away, but I feel like they did such a good job of restocking that pantry. I love what they did in the draft. Absolutely, sure. I really do. I still thought, and of course, it happens with every team that makes the Super Bowl, especially loses a Super Bowl. You can only hold on to guys for so long that they're worth too much for you to keep them, especially for the output that they're getting. I have no problem, with them losing some of these guys, because I'm telling you, man, if you look at their depth chart, there are so many guys that are in that 2 position that could start for 20 other teams. I really think they're the deepest team in football. And yeah, am I giving a little bit of a tiebreak to the team that I think has an easier chance to staying in the 1 or 2 position? Yeah.
Sure. Makes sense. No qualms with putting the Super Bowl matchup as a 1 and 2 when there weren't radical changes such as, other teams have experienced, like their quarterback retiring or things like of that nature. So no argument there. Who we got in the 3rd slot?
So
Aaron,
like we said, we agree on this one. It's the Browns. I'm just kidding. So I have the Bengals here. Okay. For the Bengals, and I guess for Joe Burrow specifically, let's just start there. But I guess the Bengals as a whole, they've proven that they can go toe-to-toe with Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
And that is super, super important in the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think things are going to be a lot more difficult for the Bengals this year to get back to the AFC Championship game. Not that they can't do it. They have all the talent in the world to get there, but I'm just looking at a very clogged AFC in general. Not to mention, I think the AFC North is the best division in football this year.
I think you could make an argument for the East, but I'm with you.
Yeah. And for the AFC East?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could now that Aaron Rodgers is a
Mhm.
Jet. And that's perfectly fair. And I actually think if you take a look at the end of my list, we'll wait till we get there, but I was expecting to go in reverse order here. I think that you're right. I mean, the AFC East, I think, has the most teams in my power rankings. But I still think top to bottom that the AFC North is the best team. And part of the reason is from a power ranking perspective, not to spoil it here, but I don't have the Steelers in here. And what was
I
the
don't
thing
either.
what was the thing I said last year from a lock standpoint? Okay, their over under is 7.5. They can hit the over, and it'll be the first time that
Mike
Tomlin doesn't go
hasn't gone
500.
500, yeah.
Right? So I know they're going to be there in the end. I just
Mhm.
it's hard for me, again, in the way too early power rankings. It's hard for me to put them there just looking, because all I can do right now is judge off of paper, and we know that's not how.
Let me get back to something you said earlier. You said you think it's going to be harder this year for the Bengals to get back to the AFC Championship game than it was this year. Last year, it was, it's going to be hard for the Bengals to repeat what they did the year. And no, they technically didn't get back to the Super Bowl, but they're 3 snaps away from being in the Super Bowl.
Sure.
What is it? Because their schedule on paper is easier.
Yeah, but that is always so.
Well, let's just take a let's hear what they obviously they have the AFC North twice, so
sure
they have all their division opponents
and
twice.
That's a gauntlet.
It's at Kansas City, Week 17, New Year's Eve. That's a huge game, obviously, big game. Some other of the tough opponents that they've got on the docket at San Francisco. That's a big game. At Jacksonville for a Monday night. That's a big game. Buffalo at home. That's a big game. Then you're looking at some of the other opponents that they're facing: Houston, Indianapolis, Tennessee, Seattle, Arizona, Los Angeles Rams. Yes, football is hard, and it's hard to win weekly in the NFL. I think this schedule is a lot less daunting than had it been this schedule last. Like if it was this exact same schedule, but I saw it last year, I'd be more worried than I am this year looking at it, if that makes sense, right? We didn't know the Colts were going to be terrible. We didn't know the Titans were going to miss the playoffs. Lost Aaron here briefly. We'll get him back on. We didn't know the Colts were going to be terrible. We didn't know that the Titans were going to miss the playoffs. We didn't know Kyler Murray was going to get hurt. All of those things. So looking at that schedule last year, I'm like, oh shit. I don't know. I don't know that I don't know if the schedule is really it for me.
Schedule watching is so hard to do right now. Like everyone does it because, again, the NFL does one of the best jobs of making themselves relevant when there aren't actual games happening, right? There is so much that goes into it. Like you said, yeah, we thought the Colts were going to be better last year. You look at for them to they started 0-2 last year, didn't they? Between the Steelers and the Cowboys.
0-3, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me see.
Oh, the Bengals. The Bengals, yes, 0-2.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Did I expect them to lose to the Steelers and the Cowboys to open the season? Absolutely not. But that's why you can't just put it down on paper. Now, here's the thing. I don't think them being at 3 is any slight to the Bengals, man.
No, but it was just your point about it being harder this year versus last year. So
my point in it being harder is I think the AFC is just going to be more difficult in general, and that might not be directly the teams they play, but it's the teams that they're jockeying with.
Sure,
I think the Broncos will be better this year with Sean Payton and maybe a season with Russell Wilson. Am I saying that they're better than the Bengals? Absolutely not. I think that you're going to have teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to take a step this year. Does that mean that they're better than the Bengals? Absolutely not. But again, this is why we're doing this in May. I think it's very easy. I think 1, 2, 3 for me here in these power rankings were super easy. I think these were very easy. You want to move a couple things around, fine. But the only thing that I questioned was, should I put the Eagles at number 1? And I just couldn't do that out of respect for the team that won last year against them.
So yeah, it was. I had wrestled with putting the Eagles at 2 I have Bengals at 2. Eagles at 3, and
Sure.
it's very close. It's very close. They're almost interchangeable. I don't have a lot of issue with this list as it is so far. So I think this is where it's going to start to get a little bit more interesting. We'll just bite these off a quarter at a time here. Coming in,
Yeah, real. I wrote a couple things down with each team. So before we move on from the Bengals, and just a couple things that the reasons I have them at 3-2 is that I love adding Orlando Brown. I mean, that's huge for you guys.
Yeah. Literally.
Right. The line is, and he's going to be obviously playing left tackle, which was a big position of need, for the Bengals. Just like with anything else, we're gonna depend on injury. Again, I think the AFC North is going to be a gauntlet. I think seeing what the Browns added on their defensive line, the Steelers always have a good defensive line. The Ravens are always a great defense as well. Protecting Joe Burrow this year was more important than ever, not because, and going back to the point of it being a little bit harder this year, is the NFL sets itself up to where it's easier to go from the bottom to the top and for the top to fall off, right? So for the Bengals here, you're still benefits of some rookie contracts. That benefit is going to start, coming off here. You have to hope for some injury success as well. But from a pure roster standpoint, they're right up there with, again, these two teams. The offense can match points with literally anybody in the league. Yeah. And Corey, you'll attest to this. Their defense continues to be probably the most underrated defense in the league.
I think, if they weren't in Cincinnati, they'd probably be called the best defense in the league. And just in my I mean, they didn't give up a touchdown for like fucking 10 weeks in the second half of the season last year. Like, and I mean, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to, put down another team that I think is coming up here. I'm not saying they're next, but another team that's coming up in these power rankings in the San Francisco 49ers. Phenomenal defense. But to say that they're leaps and bounds better than the Bengals defense last year, I think that's a little silly. They are the best defense in the AFC. Outside of the Broncos, in terms of these contenders of last year, it was clear. Statistically, the Broncos were really good.
That I'll have in the power rankings here, but
cool.
It could be on the other side.
But I think their roster it really shows how far the franchise for the Bengals has really come in the last couple of years in the way that they've drafted and the value that they've added.
Even some free agent signings. Like I've never seen them take like a Hendrickson,
Sure.
That's just a move that the Bengals historically have never made, and not only never made, but for it to pay off that well.
But you can just see you can see the plan ahead, right? Like they're getting guys like Miles Murphy in the first round out of Clemson, a guy that was probably projected like a mid to mid late draft pick. They're getting him at the end of the first round.
Sure.
Because they understand Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson aren't going to be there forever. They need to backload pass rush.
Sure, but let's not get it twisted either, though. The reason that they're so high on this list is Joe Burrow. Swap him out with
same with the Chiefs, same with the Eagles.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? So swap them or swap Burrow out with average quarterback, whoever. I was going to say Joe, but that doesn't work. Average, whoever quarterback, and they're the Vikings. They're
Sure, but I don't think that the Bengals are unique in that fact.
No, they're not. But we can talk about all these things that jockey between 1, 2, and 3. The reason that these three teams are right where they are,
best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts
he's right there.
He's right there, and he got paid like one. He's just a little more unique, where you have Pat and Joe, who are, in my opinion, more of the kind of quarterback that I would want to build my team around.
100%. All right, Aaron, let's get into the second quarter here.
So you weren't saying they're next, but I am. I have San Francisco. I have San Francisco at 4.
Give me the why.
So I'd be more concerned about the quarterback position if Shanahan didn't consistently get good play out of this position all of the time. With the guys on paper that they have, they never play or they always play much better than they should. Now, of course, adding McCaffrey last year was a huge thing. They just didn't lose after they traded for him until, Brock Purdy blew out his arm in the playoffs. You can argue, and we'll never know, were the 49ers going to win that game against the Eagles. That happens so early in the game that you'd never know. And I think that leaves a little bit of a bad taste in everyone's mouth. I'm going to probably bring this up a couple more times, but I have some NFC teams I think higher just because I think the class of the NFC is so easy to see. I think it's obviously the Eagles right here. And I think the 49ers from a roster standpoint are maybe, again, for my opinion, outside of the Eagles, maybe the best constructed roster outside of the quarterback position, which is why, of course, I gave the edge to the Eagles there in the NFC. But when you talk about guys like you got McCaffrey, you got Debo, you got Kittle, you have these guys on offense. And of course, everyone knows that it doesn't matter who you line up in the backfield. Shanahan's going to make sure that they play well. I think you could maybe argue Shanahan is I'm not going to say the best coach in the league, but he's certainly a guy who consistently squeezes the most talent out of his roster. Sure. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here at 4 because I love their roster construction. Their defense is always in attack mode. And I like what Shanahan always gets out. Of course, the question is going to be the quarterback position. Is Purdy going to be ready in time? I don't know. Are they going to be able to build an offense around Trey Lance? I just don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Of course, Garoppolo is no longer there. But from 1 to 53, it's hard to pick a better roster if you're just looking at numbers. Of course, what were we just talking about with 1 to 3? Very heavily weighted position to not have a question mark out.
And that's the reason they're not 4 for me. And I have 2 teams ahead of them.
Okay.
And I can at least tell you who I have here at 4, and it's because of the quarterback position. It's the Buffalo Bills. While I believe that the 3 quarterbacks ahead of them, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow, I do believe that at this point I'm confident in saying that they are just at a different level than I think Josh Allen might even be able to attain. And that's not a slight at him. All it really is saying is that in terms of a pure quarterback, that's what he is. And maybe it's because of the system. Maybe it's because Josh Allen's been called to be the leading rusher of the Buffalo Bills, and they haven't schemed it up appropriately. Sure. But in terms of errant throws and poor turnovers, I don't feel comfortable putting him up in the same class as the Chiefs, Eagles, or Bengals. But sure. That being said, he is a game changer. He is a fucking unicorn. He is a cyborg playing football, and it's fucking awesome to watch. Yeah. And that's why I do have them up, because they also have weapons. They also have Von Miller, who they didn't have in the playoffs, that's coming back this season.
But is he going to be able to get through a whole seseason? That was part of it to me. And
he did it. He did 2 years prior.
Spoiler here. So you have the Bills at 4.
Yes.
I have them at 5. We're it's probably just splitting hairs at this point. And again, I don't want to keep harping on this because you can quantify your power rankings however you want. Who do I think has a better chance of making the Super Bowl? It's the 49ers.
Is right that now, power rankings though?
No, it is in May. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, we can talk about who's the best teams, but if I'm going to put my best 12 out there, what's the goal of the season? Not to have a good regular season.
Yeah, if I looked at it this way, my rankings would be different.
But that's what I'm saying. There's no quantifying power.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is. We're doing it right now, right? You're quantifying it by how easy it is to get to the Super Bowl, and I'm saying,
and that's not
in
my
a vacuum.
Only, yeah, that's not my only. That's a tiebreaker, right?
Sure.
So with the Bills, you've already mentioned a lot of it, but the roster is still too loaded for them not to be at least in this spot.
Yeah.
I still have a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth from last season when it comes to the Bills, just with how their season ended. And it's one thing to lose to the Bengals, but it's how they lost to the Bengals. So the next
at
closest,
home. Right. And if they were in a dome, which is,
oh yeah. But Buffalo never wanted a dome ever. And they're not building one with their new stadium. Right?
Insane. That was the dumbest shit I've ever fucking
heard.
That's
just stupid. I mean, we can talk about it, but I'm not even going to breathe life.
Did you see Tyler Boyd's response?
No, I didn't.
He just said, "We just different."
Hey man, I get it. So again, my worry here is that last year was the Bills' best chance, and I think, I don't want to say they've peaked, but again, with
kind of along the same lines of what I was talking about with Josh Allen, though, right? Like you kind of saw some chinks in that armor, right?
I just don't understand how they haven't. The easiest roster upgrade in the league is get the Buffalo Bills a good running back. And I don't want this to be from a fantasy perspective. Very rarely does a Super Bowl winning team have the best running back in the league. I'm not asking for them to have that. I'm asking for you to physically take touches away from Josh Allen where you can go 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we'll see. James Cook, I think, came across last year. He certainly has the pedigree. I like some of the stuff that I saw out of him, but he's not a 3-down back. He's an elusive guy who can, potentially catch the ball out of the backfield. Bringing in Damian Harris from New England, that's great. That's not moving the needle for me.
Mm-mm. It's
when
Devin Singletary.
Yeah, but when I see guys like, what if the Bills had just made the move for DeAndre Swift?
Yeah, or David Montgomery.
Dude, I'm still looking at Kareem
Jamal
Hunt.
Williams.
Kareem Hunt's still on the market.
Ezekiel Elliott.
Zeke isn't doing it for me. I'd take if the Bills could just go out and sign Kareem Hunt tomorrow for $1 million bucks.
The Browns cut him?
No, but he's a unrestricted free agent.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're not. I mean, we have.
It's not a tag and trade type deal.
No, we drafted a guy last year, and yeah, there's no.
D'Ernest. What about D'Ernest?
What's that?
Don't you have like D'Ernest Johnson or something?
No, he's also unrestricted.
Okay, gotcha. So
currently, we drafted a guy named Ford last year out of it escapes me now, but he was a special teams game. Jerome Ford. Go ahead, yeah.
Can I just say how cool the name D'Ernest is? Like,
yeah, right. Jerome Ford was Cincinnati.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I am the Ernest. I am the Ernest.
I'm Ernest, baby.
Okay, cool. No, I actually don't have the 49ers at 5 either because of quarterback play.
Sure.
You talk about complete rosters. I think the team that I have here at 5 is now a very, very complete roster. Especially they're going to have one of the most exciting second-year running backs coming off injury. Got a brand new quarterback. I got the New York Jets at 5, man.
Okay.
I think we talk about good defenses with the Bengals. The Jets are right there, man. It's like Jets, Broncos, Bengals. Those are like the top defenses in the AFC, in my opinion. Now you're adding Aaron Rodgers. You're getting Breece Hall back. If he's anything like he was last year, that's huge. That is massive. And now the Jets, they've added more firepower around that. It's going to be nothing but good for Garrett Wilson going into his second season with a veteran quarterback that knows how to throw people open. I'm very interested. I think Bills Jets is going to be a hell of a battle for that AFC East. I'm not ready to say that the Jets are going to walk away with this like a lot of people are. I still think the road runs through Buffalo out of respect because they've dominated that division over the last 5 years. But the Jets they're very, very close. And yes, they bought that roster, but shit, the Rams did it and they hold a Lombardi.
Sure.
He got it 6.
I not only don't have the Jets, I have a different AFC East team.
Wow. Oh, no. Okay, I know where you're going. And it's not. Okay.
I know.
Yeah.
I love the Dolphins, man. I
know you do. You love Mike McDaniel.
I love Mike McDaniel.
Dolphins roster, though.
I think, and kind of the same props that I gave to Shanahan earlier is kind of how I feel about McDaniel. Listen, yeah, Tua, let's figure it out. Okay. There's a thing. I'm not going to sit here and make my first point, Mike White. But that is exactly the quarterback that you need to sign for when you have a guy who's injured or oft injured like Tua. I think people forget how good Tua actually looked when he was healthy last year. And save for the Bengals, who will probably have something to say, they might have the best wide receiver duo in the league. And when it comes to putting up points, the way Tyreek Hill is just a game changer. I was worried. I'll be honest. I was a little bit worried about it last year with how is that going to look with a guy like Tua. Fine. Just get him 13 touches a game, sometimes by the line of scrimmage, and he'll just go for 80 yards. Yeah. I think they have a really good defense too. I think they have a very same way that we were talking about with the Bengals, although in not the same class. I think they have a very underrated defense. And I'm just not ready to buy in 100% to the Aaron Rodgers to New York thing. Yeah, he's let's not forget he's a year removed, from back-to-back MVPs, but he's also what, 37?
I think he's like in football years, he's about 80 years old. So
Yeah,
yeah.
something like that. I really, really like the construction of this Dolphins roster. I like the coaching of it. I also think they have a very unique home field advantage. I think I like the Dolphins a lot. Again, I think the AFC East is, you might have checked me a little bit in saying that they're the best division in football, which is probably fair because now that I'm, looking at my list a little bit closer, I got,
You have 3 AFC East teams on there and only 2
yeah,
AFC
in single digits. So, I think that's probably fair to say. But yeah, I have the Dolphins here at 6.
I get it. This is where I have the 49ers coming in. You can see that I've prioritized quarterback play in my list. And while I think the 49ers have a big problem at quarterback right now, especially when their quarterback is a guy that has literally said on a hot mic, I don't know, I'm out there seeing ghosts. That's an issue for me.
That's who it is. It's Darnold. I was trying to remember who they got for like Lance and Purdy insurance.
Yeah. It's something that, all that really shows to me is that they have no confidence in Trey Lance, which terrifies me as a dynasty owner of Trey Lance. I'm going to be looking for Anthony Richardson early in my dynasty draft, I think. But but yeah, I got the 49ers here at 6. Again, mine is Chiefs, Bengals, Eagles, Bills, Jets, Niners. I don't actually have the Dolphins on my power rankings.
Interesting.
Because of Tua. I have a problem with that. Because of the way that was managed. I don't know that I think that is a sign of deeper issues within the organization in terms of how they make decisions.
Sure.
So I struggle with that a little bit. So that's where it is. All right, we got to get back on track. We got to get back to where we're saying the same things. It's just a lot less confrontational. I don't like to see you sad. Who do you have at 7, Aaron?
I'm not sad at all. It doesn't make for good podcasting. We're like, great point, sir. On to the next topic.
And Fox News does great numbers, and they jerk each other off the whole time.
That's fair. Up next on Hannity, we have at number 7, we got the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh, okay.
I think this is, again, more or less a statement.
I have them at 8 for what
Tennessee as a whole, but they're fine. They're top to bottom, a really, really good roster. It's hard to see a world where the Dallas Cowboys don't make the playoffs and aren't a 10 to 11 win team. This was the team that I was going to mention in terms of, if you want to talk about top defenses in the league again. I know you're saying, the Bengals are underrated. I was saying that too. I don't think the Cowboys are underrated by any means, but I think that they have an argument to be up there with top defenses in the league, of course, anchored by Micah Parsons. You're talking about the guy who's the odds-on favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. They might be, the 7th most talented team, but again, it's hard. I don't know that they are necessarily the 7th most talented team, but it's just hard to see a world where they don't make the playoffs. And again, take Jalen Hurts away. Is Dak Prescott the best quarterback in the NFC?
Yeah, I think he has to be, right? I think that's it. I think yes.
Right?
Yes, he is. And that's fucking crazy. But yeah, he is. Well, and for so long, we always had, you had Breeze, you had Rodgers for a little bit there, you had Brady. They always kind of pushed him down the list. Stafford. Mm-hmm. Stafford's got to be up there as at least.
I think he's 3rd.
Where's Cousins? Where's Goff?
Or wait, I'm sorry. I'm saying Goff. Yeah. I think Goff might be 3rd. Or
you just associated Lions with Matt Stafford, didn't you?
I did. I know.
You just heard Stafford.
But Stafford is not. No. I meant to say Goff. I mean, Stafford, let's wait and see. He's dealing with a different injury than what he got Tommy John for. Spoiler alert, I do not have the Rams on this list.
Me either. Who I do have at 7, it is different than you. As I mentioned, I had the Cowboys at 8, and and I think you're going to like who I have at 7, Aaron.
Okay.
Duval. I got the Jags coming in at number 7. Trevor Lawrence. He has arrived. He is the real deal. I would say he's a top 4, 5 quarterback in the AFC, depending on where you have Rodgers and Lamar. I think he's there. I think he is just as good as Justin Herbert, and I think they're a better team than are the Chargers. So I have the Jags at 7. They get Calvin Ridley back this year. If you want to talk about path to the playoffs, doesn't get fucking any easier than AFC South. I mean, Jesus,
Sure.
that is it is the AFC South runs through Jacksonville from henceforth until Trevor Lawrence decides otherwise. So I got the Jags coming in at 7. Aaron, who do you have at 8?
At 8, this is now where I have the Jets.
Okay.
Which I believe you had at 6. So
I had the Jets at 5.
At 5. Okay. So I have the Jets at 8. And part of it is, I think it's going to take a little bit for this to gel. I had already mentioned, we're a year removed from Aaron Rodgers winning back-to-back MVPs. I think people forget that in general. This offense is going to be able to hum. I don't think there's going to be any issues with that. Even if Rodgers is 75%, what we expect from Aaron Rodgers, I still think this is going to be a top offense in the league. And on the other side of the ball, Sauce Gardner may be the best young defender in the league.
Dude, he's so fucking cool.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, he really is. And of course it's with the Jets, but is he not just Revis reincarnated?
Dude, it's insane. It's awesome at what he's able to do. And there's a lot of questions that he played in the American Conference at the University of Cincinnati. Of course, he didn't give up any touchdowns. He just replicated it out in the NFL with another fantastic. He was Defensive Rookie of the Year. Am I mistaken in that?
No, he was.
Yeah. So I mean, just absolute stud. And again, you know how I feel about that defense. And that wide receiver core just got better. So
my worry with the Jets, and the reason I have them lower than the Dolphins, or why I'm not, again, I don't think 8 is a bad spot to be in on this list.
No,
I'm worried
you're having a home playoff game.
I'm worried how much the Jets have handed the keys to Rodgers, who hasn't even played it down for them yet. Hey, let's get Lazard, let's get Cobb, let's get all my boys. You have a guy on your roster in Garrett Wilson who is, he's the guy. And I'm worried. 100%. I'm worried about Aaron Rodgers coming in, doing Aaron Rodgers things, and he has a tendency to not trust rookies or unproven guys. And I'm not saying Wilson's like that by any means, but I can certainly see him in key positions leaning on the guys that he's leaned on before. Mm. And I would understand why he's doing that, but I can just, if I simulate this a million times, there's enough outcomes where this blows up in their face.
Sure.
That I have them a little bit lower on my list. Again, roster wise, assuming Aaron Rodgers can even be 75, 80% of what he is, this is a playoff team, no doubt.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the Jets just handing over. I don't want to say the kingdom, because it's not like they're basically like, please come on in, redecorate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's fine. But I'm a little bit worried about that in general from like a 35,000 foot view.
Perfect. I totally get it. I think it all makes sense. At 8, like I said earlier, I have the Dallas Cowboys. Who do you have? We're getting so what we got 4 teams left to round out the top 12. Who do you have coming in at number 9, Aaron?
I got the Chargers.
Okay. I have them at 10.
Okay. And that seems fair to me. And I've been hyping them up for 2 years now. And to me, this is a team that last year I might have had where the Dolphins are. You know what I mean?
I think you had the Chargers where the Bengals were last year.
I think I had them at like 4 or 5. I definitely was really, really high on them. I'm still
revisionist history.
We can go back and check the tape. I don't remember exactly where. I think I had them.
You were big on them.
I had them to make the AFC Championship game, which was a big mistake. But I would tell you that
you have them over the Jags. That's interesting.
Not to spoil it, I have the Jags at 10. You know what I mean? Like they're right there, and look, it's tough to be in the same division as the Chiefs, and I really need to see something from them this season. But I still look at this defense on paper, and I see all these guys that, you got Derwin, you got Joey, you got guys. This is certainly can be a team on defense, and I really do believe that Herbert can be the MVP of the league. I truly believe that. I don't think he's going to win it by any means, but I'm sure just looking at the odds, he's probably top 8, maybe. Like, I don't think that would be a crazy world that we live in, that we walk away from this season and Justin Herbert ends up being the MVP. If anything, I kind of thought last year was just a little bit of a, if he can come out of this and play like he did his rookie year, his second year, we'll see. But I'm still very, very high on the Chargers, but I had to check myself a little bit, and that's why I have them at 9.
Interesting. There's a team that I have at 9 that getting a lot of buzz lately. I got the Detroit Lions at number 9.
All right. Our lists are not crazy, huh?
I got the Lions at number 9, man. I think that defense absolutely figured it out last season at the tail end. I think their defense is a big reason why they went 8-2 in their last 10 games to finish the year. I think missing Jameson Williams for 6 games is a lot better than missing him for 10. And I think Jared Goff has kind of learned how to play within himself again and be somebody that takes care of the football. I think the addition of Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be amazing for that offense. His comp for me is like a Marshall Faulk type player. Yes, he can.
That's very.
I said
praise.
Type player. I didn't say he was going to be a Hall of Famer. It's the style of game and that he is so effective catching the ball like Marshall Faulk was. Marshall Faulk was really one of the biggest running backs to be that transition.
So just say Austin Eckler then.
Yeah, but like, no, that's not his.
Because he's not even close to Marshall.
You don't know that.
Sure. I mean, all right. If they knew he was going to be Marshall Faulk, he would have been the first running back taken.
I mean, he was the second. He was drafted in the top 10.
Yeah.
So
I know. I thought he was way overdrafted.
Or 15. He was drafted 15.
Yeah, way overdrafted.
Maybe he was, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to production, it's not going to really matter, right, where he was drafted.
Sure.
If he plays like a top 15 player, then it's great.
Maybe the modern version of that would be, let's just say, Barkley.
Sure, but I think Barkley's got a little bit more power than between the tackles than Gibbs does. But anyway, I think he's going to be a huge addition. I don't think they're going to miss Jamal Williams a whole hell of a lot with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield there. I think that's going to be a very effective.
Swift, right?
No, Jamal Williams.
Because Jamal. Okay.
Jamal Williams on
Jamal
the
was
Saints.
big. I mean, didn't he lead the league in touchdowns last year?
He broke Barry Sanders' single season touchdown record.
And that was you watch the games fluky.
Yeah, so a lot of touches inside the 5. Had an extra game, whatever.
I was a Jamal fantasy owner last year. I loved him, but I was like, this guy's
not better than Barry Sanders. I don't think
anyone's
arguing that. Yeah, I don't think anyone's arguing that. But also, I think the tight end that they got in the 3rd round, Sam Laporta out of Iowa, I don't think they're going to be missing TJ Hawkinson very much. I think this guy is probably one of the best route running tight ends that was available in the draft, and he ended up in Detroit. Dan Campbell, tight end himself, loves a good tight end. So I think they know what they're looking for there, and they got that. So going to be another great help for Jared Goff. And Jared Goff kind of is that guy to where, like, you put weapons around him that, I see him as like the best version of Andy Dalton, right? Like if you put weapons around him and you have a halfway solid defense that can hold a team to 24 points, you're going to be in most games, right? This offense is one of the most productive offenses in the league last year. And I think they're going to continue to gel. So that's why I've got the Lions at 9. Aaron, you already mentioned who you have at 10. Go ahead and repeat it for the world.
That's Duval for us, right? And for the Jaguars, I absolutely loved the way they closed the season last year. Obviously, besides the playoffs, where the wild card game, Trevor Lawrence is throwing 4 picks and still somehow, we're moving
still
on.
In it.
I actually, even in my notes, I said, I want to see Trevor Lawrence make another leap here and protect the ball better. And while we were talking here, I was just curious. He only threw 8 picks in the regular season.
Yeah, not bad.
But he was also in his rookie year tied for first place with interceptions. And when the lights were the brightest, he had no problem turning the ball over that, especially at the end of the Chiefs game as well. comes to mind, of course. So I don't think it's a bad note, but also at the same time, I was surprised to see that he only threw 8 picks in the regular season last year.
Yeah.
You had mentioned the Calvin Ridley piece. I want to see,
you're holding breath on that.
I'm holding a little breath. Yeah. But here's the thing. Christian Kirk, I thought, played pretty well last year.
Yeah.
If Christian Kirk can come out and be your number 2 now, Calvin Ridley, the problem for me is they have a little bit way too similar games. Obviously, Ridley is the better player, but he hasn't played for a year.
They're both vertical threats is what you're saying.
They're both vertical threats, but they're small-bodied receivers who
Sure.
can also succeed out of the slot. I don't really see either of those guys as, like a, for your world, like a Higgins type or, just a big body
climb
receiver.
the ladder guy.
Yeah, climb the ladder type of guy. But I want to see Trevor Lawrence just take one more leap for me. But he certainly can be a top 5 quarterback in the AFC, but I just don't think he's there quite yet. The big thing here, and if we want to talk about path, I don't, Colts, Texans, Titans. I think the Jaguars have a very, very good chance of winning that division. You saw 3 rookie quarterbacks drafted in that division this year. And when we're talking about the May power rankings, that's fresh in my mind. I'm talking about a team that, let's just say Tannehill, is going to start this year. I don't know that he's going to finish it. Whether if the Jaguars are going to get a win towards the end of the year because Levis is getting his second start or whatever it might be. I'm not looking at the schedule, but you know what I mean. I think there are, when we talk about the Bengals, being at 3 because I think the AFC North is going to be tough. The Bills only being at 5 because I think the AFC East is going to be tough. I think there's going to be some losses for those teams just because you have such familiarity. I think the Jaguars, although still a young team themselves, somehow find themselves being the mature of the group.
Yeah, no, I think that's an extremely valid point. And one guy that we didn't really talk about, Travis Etienne. I think he's going to continue to get better as well in year 3, coming off that ACL injury. I believe it was ACL 2 years ago before his rookie season.
Great last year.
Yeah,
I try to avoid putting too much credence into the running back in general, but I think your point is completely valid.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the reason that they make a run? Probably not. I think same thing. They're an underrated defense. Josh Allen is still just a beast.
Fair. It's going to be a tough place to play this year, for sure. For sure. All right, we got 2 more left in our power rankings. Then we're going to be getting over to some NBA conference finals talk, as well as touching on the Stanley Cup conference finals. If you are tuning in and listening, thanks for hanging with us. We love you guys so much. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on TikTok. We are posting Fade the Streak bets every day for baseball betting. If it's too tough for you to keep up with a baseball team, first of all, shame on you. But we got you. We got you covered. You don't have to watch baseball for this betting strategy. So follow us on TikTok.
What's going on with the Orioles?
Subscribe on YouTube.
Their game was delayed or some shit.
I want you to find out 2 things. Find out what's going on with the Orioles and Yankees, Aaron, and I also want you to see what the
Yankees are up 2-1.
2-1. Plenty of baseball left. Go ahead and check for me the betting odds on Jacksonville to win the division. I'm curious. If it's plus odds, I'm probably going to kind of take it.
It's the Jaguars to win the division, like the AFC South.
Yeah,
I would doubt that it is, but
like plus 105 probably.
Let's find out real quick while we're.
Is it like minus 200? It's gonna go either way, but yeah, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on TikTok, and we are available. 160. 160. I'm staying away.
The next odds are plus 360 on the Titans, which actually is not a terrible bet.
Fuck that, dude. No.
Of course I'm not making it, but that's how gambling works, right?
Yeah. Well, you just keep your money in your pocket as well. There's that. There's that. But yeah, and we're available wherever you get your podcast. So I got that plug in there eventually. All right, we got 2 more left here, and then I got some honorable mentions. Teams that very easily could be 11 or 12.
I do too. Okay.
All right, Aaron, who do you have as the 11th best team in May for the 2023 NFL season?
So again, our surprisingly, I don't think our lists are that far off. I think the outlier of here is, of course, the Dolphins. I got the Lions. I got the Lions at 11. I think, again, the NFC is wide open, and hey, Rodgers leaving the conference is a good thing. And I don't think it's better for any team than the Detroit Lions. I think that division is theirs to lose. Now that can come with a lot of pressure, that I don't know that this team can succeed with. I think Justin Fields can turn a page this year, and somehow the Bears winning this conference, just like the curse of Aaron Rodgers kicking the shit out of them for the last 15 years has finally gone. And of course, I think the Vikings, who are probably both honorable mentions for us, unless you have them at 12, which maybe you do, but I don't. I'd be surprised if they somehow won this division. I wouldn't, but I think what we saw from, the second half of the season to that last game of the year where they somehow beat the Packers and still missed the playoffs just because, that's how the schedule worked out. I really, really like it. We were just talking about it. Take Hurts out of it. Who's the second best quarterback in the NFC?
Sure.
It's not Prescott, it's Goff. And I can't believe that that's a sentence that gets to be said out loud.
I mean, 6 years ago, you're like, yeah, it's Jared Goff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, no, because even then, like Jared Goff was good, but even when he was good, it was like, all right, Sean McVay, this offense, Todd Gurley, like he was basically Kirk Cousins
system.
Yeah, or it was like where you're like, yeah, I get he's good, but is he good? Kind of thing, like because he wasn't, and he was the number 1 overall pick. So there's the stature to that too, but he never really lived up to it. Big thing for me for the Lions is Amon-Ra really just, God, I fucking love
your first round fantasy pick.
No,
with Jameson Williams out the first 6 games. No, okay,
no, because Jared Goff still is quarterback, and he's the third best. I'm throwing that out, but I'm not. No, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
He's also too small for me to want to take in the first round. My first round pick in fantasy, it's football. There's no way to do this. I want to mitigate risk as much as possible with my first overall pick.
Yeah.
So no, but anyways, I said, and we had already hatched this out a little bit, so I don't want to rehash it too much. I didn't love the Gibbs pick, but that doesn't mean it isn't going to pay some dividends. Sure. I don't love it from what the draft means. Now, is it going to help them this year? Fuck yeah, it is. Is it going to help them in 3 years? I don't know. Not sure. With other guys who were available there.
Fair.
But I do love the culture that Campbell has built there. And I got the Lions 11 here, and I'm really, really excited for their season. And I think Detroit fans should be.
So coming in at 11 for me, I have the second team out of the AFC North. I've got the Baltimore Ravens coming in at 11. I just think they're kind of one of those teams that, like, if they win 9 games, are we shocked? No. Like that kind of, if they're in the playoffs, right? Like this is like fringe wild card territory that we're in now.
Sure.
In that, 12 teams, we're talking about 6. Yeah, this is wild card territory. This is exactly wild card territory at this point. So to say that they're a wild card team, I don't think that's crazy. It'll be interesting to see if Lamar plays a full fucking season though. And there's a lot that depends on that. I'm not really like losing a whole lot of sleep about Odell Beckham Jr. being back in the division. That doesn't really do a whole lot for me at all.
That's part of the reason I don't have him in my 12.
I think that respectfully, your opinion is jaded because of your experience with this individual.
I liked Odell.
You don't like what he does for what? Why? What? Then what? What's the play there? How are they worse with Odell? I guess
they're not worse. It's the fact that the Ravens
drinking a little bourbon over there. What you got?
Yeah, of course.
What do you got?
A little Four Roses small batch.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
Okay. Here's my thing with Baltimore. In the Lamar era, or let's just call it the last 8 years. The receiver
Lamara.
that they've what?
The Lamara.
The Lamar era.
Lamara.
The player that they spent the most money on at the wide receiver position before this was Michael Crabtree.
Mm.
It's the fact that they finally decided to open the pocketbook up for a 30-year-old receiver who's well past his prime.
To get Lamar to sign.
Right. Oh yeah, 100%. And but the reason they had to do that was because they dragged their feet just to get here. And now when we were talking before, or when I was on with Todd and Bobby, it's the opportunity cost for me. Look, the Ravens were really, really exciting when Lamar Jackson was on a rookie deal.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I love that roster now. You couldn't keep it together. You couldn't win playoff games with him on a rookie contract.
Well, they did. They won one. They won a playoff game, which whatever. But I think that again, that Lamar is he's a game changer. We have to admit that he can change a game when he's able to. This is I'm blanking on the Minnesota wide receiver that they have. Son of a bitch, just coming off an injury. Wide receiver from Minnesota. They drafted him in the first round, top 10. Shit. Why am I Bateman?
Oh, Rashad Bateman.
You got Bateman coming off an injury, so there's a question mark there, but you got Odell, Mark Andrews, top 3 tight end in the league, no question about that.
Sure.
J.K. Dobbins, when healthy, can be one of the best running backs in the league as well. And that defense isn't a slouch by any means. I mean, they went into Cincinnati in a playoff game. Sure, the Bengals played a little sloppy, but they held the Bengals to 2 touchdowns. I think that entire, and one of them was defensive. So there is something a little bit to be said about that. And I just think that, again, we're at the point now in these power rankings where I'm looking at, are they a wild card team? When I'm asking these questions, is this team capable of being a wild card team? Honestly, if you took the Dolphins and put them here at 11 over the Ravens for my list, I would be okay with that too. I think they're kind of interchangeable at that point for me. So, and that's based on where I have the Jets in this list as well. So, who do we got rounding out your top 12, Aaron?
I have the Browns, and I know. Listen, yeah, there's shit behind me. We can talk about it. Is there a little bit? I
struggled with not putting them in this list. And they're they again interchangeable out of the bottom 2 for me.
For them to be at 12 for me is just not a stretch. And I think the discourse when it comes to NFL football is falling away from them, and I'm totally fine with it. I have been the off-season champion so many years running. It does not matter. Those banners do not hang up.
Sure.
The Deshaun piece of it, sure. I think that has driven people to discount this roster in such a way that, like we're talking about with some of these other teams, what position is Jared Goff? If the Browns were in the NFC, they'd be like 7 on this list. You can say that about
for the way that you were grading it, right?
Sure. Yeah. But what I'm saying is even if Deshaun is 50% of what he used to be, there's no way that team doesn't make the playoffs. And I think
in the NFC.
Yes, in the NFC. That's what I'm saying. That's 100%. So yeah, that's a giant piece of this. A million percent. I'm not going to discount that for sure, but I also think we've now gone so far the other way. And of course, Deshaun Watson wasn't going to play well last year when he can only play, after week 13
8 games or something.
And he hadn't played in 2 years, and he wasn't allowed in the building until October. It's not like that anymore. This is now somebody who is completely involved in everything that's going on. He gets to he can text the coach today if he wants. He took the entire team to Puerto Rico, which is, again, not an odd thing for the leader of a team to do, or especially the guy who's getting paid the most amount of money. But if you look at this roster top to bottom and the holes that they filled in this roster in this offseason, I think this was already a really good roster. One of the things last year was they couldn't defend the run. Okay, so what are we going to do about that?
Unless it was against Cincinnati.
Right. So what are we going to do about that? All right, I don't know. Let's bring in Dalvin Tomlinson. All right, cool. Let's bring in Zadarius Smith. Bringing in Obi from the Texans.
Zadarius isn't necessarily a run stopper, though. He's an edge player.
Yeah, no. I'm sorry, Dalvin Tomlinson is going to be yes. But what the interesting thing is Zadarius Smith is a guy that on third down you can bring inside. And now you can bring Ogie and Miles off of the edge with Tomlinson and Zadarius inside. Yep. He is not a a run stopper defensive tackle, but he's a great
He allows
pass
you to
rushing.
scheme. He allows you to scheme
Exactly.
differently. Sure.
We brought Jim Schwartz in as a defensive coordinator. I think the secondary, I think just losing Joe Woods is such a big deal for this defense because it was ass last year. And I can read you the names on the roster. They're good players. I can assure you that.
Sure.
I'm not willing to start putting my money here. And the only reason is I'm hedging against my happiness. I don't bet on the Browns. I don't. Because all I'm going to do is have a worse
I put a Super Bowl future on the Bengals 2 weeks after the Super Bowl this year.
That's awesome. And if that works for you, great. Because here's the thing, Corey. There's no amount of money I could win that would feel better than just winning it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's an amount that I can lose.
Yeah, fair enough. So let me tell you, and let me preface this by saying that the points that you have made, I'm not disagreeing with any of those points.
Sure.
I think
I get it.
The Browns absolutely addressed their primary need, which was reinforcing the interior of that defensive line, one that they made clear they didn't prioritize, and it kind of bit them in the ass this last season, coupled with the fact that obviously their starting quarterback didn't play most of the season. Obviously, a big factor there, but they addressed that need. I have questions for the Browns. If your best options are Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore, that's an issue for me. If you're saying that Donovan Peoples-Jones is your best option behind that, that's an issue for me. If those are the top three, I'm not excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, are we talking about receiver or are we talking about pass catcher? Because I would just say Njoku was
great. You can scheme against that though. I'm totally cool. I'm totally cool putting a slot receiver and a linebacker on Njoku and going single coverage with all of those guys. I'm comfortable. Obviously, bit the Bengals in the ass on that Halloween game where Amari Cooper went fucking off. Right. Obviously, that is capable of happening, but the law of averages is telling me that's not something I'm too worried about. So that's why they're an honorable mention for me, and they're not top 12. In addition to, I think while Denzel Ward has played phenomenally, there are other questions there that aren't on the defensive line. I'm wondering, are we going to get Jock? Is he going to be who he was drafted to be and anchor that linebacking core?
No,
I don't think so. And again, it's hard to say after one season, though. It's hard to say that.
Well, it's two, but
okay, fair enough. Sorry.
No, you're good. So I agree with you. And the way that the Browns neglected defensive tackle last year, but you could also argue defensive line. They're like, I don't know, we got Myles Garrett. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, right. Which is a lot, by the way.
And I also think it's a scheme thing, and I think it's a opportunity cost thing. I'm still worried about this team at linebacker. 100%. But look at it's
a good thing to be worried at, though. If you have to pick one thing that you're going to be worried about,
that's what I'm going to say. You're not going to be good at every level. That's just not going to happen. And if that's going to be our worst room, I'm fine with that. Yeah, Denzel Ward, like you said, he was phenomenal, or he's always phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think a lot of their secondary issues last year and just their defense in whole had a lot to do with the coach, and it was very vocal and very loud here in terms of get this guy the fuck out of here, and to at least bring in a guy like Jim Schwartz, who's a former head coach, who was with the Eagles last year, I think is a big deal.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, absolutely. And again, honorable mention for me, the reason why they're not 12 and why I have, another team here is because of, in terms of scoring options outside of the running back, I think that there are question marks for me.
Mm-hmm.
Team that I have rounding out 12, a team that you don't have on your power rankings is the Minnesota Vikings. Again,
yeah, they're honorable for me, but they're probably 13.
Yeah, if I'm talking about, again, this is a wild card team for me. I think the Lions will win this division. I think they're the best team. Again, is it crazy if it happens to be the Vikings? No. Everybody's an injury away from not performing to their ability, right? That's football. But the Vikings are a team that, while the best record we've ever seen last year, still went out and won a dozen football games. Yep. And they are now in an easier division than they were last year with Aaron Rodgers not being there. So that alone helps them out a little bit. I still think Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the league. I think that they've got a new tight end there in TJ Hawkinson that's going to be fantastic, and that defense needs help in serious ways. There's not a whole lot more I can do to help bolster this team, but Kirk Cousins looked really good last year, like above average Kirk Cousins, and even shed a little bit of the prime time curse a couple of times last year in
Sure.
the way that he performed. I mean, you get this guy at a 9 a.m. in London, he's ready to go. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, wild card fringe team. Again, if you were to interchange Browns, Ravens, Vikings, in any of that bottom three for me, I'm okay with any of those. We're kind of splitting hairs at that point.
And again, at this point for 12, like, is there bias that's coming in? Hell yeah, there is.
Yeah, you want to see the fucking Browns up there. I get it. Yeah.
Well, no, not only that.
No,
I know the roster top to bottom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
Sure.
and I know the coaching staff. I know the tendencies. I know so I can look at this, and I hope you'll back me up on this. If I didn't think the Browns deserve to be at 12,
you wouldn't have
put them there. I can objectively say when they're bad. I think they've now gotten to a point where they're underrated. At least in May.
Recency bias in terms of their record last year and things like that.
I think recency bias with their record last year, and I also think it's pretty like in vogue to shit on the Browns. It already was, but
ESPN sucked you guys' dick for like 3 years though.
Well, sure, but that was okay. But go before then. It was we were shitty forever.
Sure.
We finally have like
it was like cute when you won and stuff.
It was a cute little. Who doesn't like it? Let's look at the Jaguars. What are we doing right now with them this year? How is that different than what we did to the Browns pre-Deshaun? You know what I mean? Like in terms of, oh yeah, this team hasn't been successful in a little bit. I like it. I like what they're doing. That's fun. I'd rather root for the Jaguars than the Patriots to win again. You know what I mean? Like that's what that was. And then of course now extrapolate it with the Deshaun thing, where of course who wants to root for that?
Sure.
So I get that piece of it, but now I actually find them to be very underrated. So okay. I had the Browns 12, honorable mention right there, 13, Ravens, Vikings right there at 14. And then from there, it kind of just falls for me. Again, do I think Pittsburgh is going to somehow be in the mix? Yeah, somehow. I don't know how, but it's going to happen. And then outside of that, it's like the Giants, kind of like Dayball a lot.
I'm really glad that you mentioned them because I think they could actually surprise people again. Because yes, I do like Dayball. Another thing that I really, 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 really like for a average quarterback is a stud tight end, and they got Darren Waller.
Yeah,
they got Darren Waller. That's huge. Good point. That's huge. I mean, a Darren Waller, Saquon. Not backfield, but 1-2 punch out of big fellas that can block, move, run, and things like that. That's pretty good. And it kind of lightens the blow of having a terrible wide receiver core, which the Giants seemingly have not had a good wide receiver core since they won that Super Bowl with Shep, OBJ. They had one more Plex. Plaxico wasn't with OBJ. Sterling Shepard.
Well, OBJ wasn't there when they wait. Were you saying when they won the Super Bowl?
The second Super Bowl.
Yeah, OBJ was.
Oh, he wasn't there. I'm sorry. Who was it? Who's the Tyrese?
Yeah, he was honestly that guy was a nobody. He just made the best play of his life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Most Super Bowls, but anyway, they haven't invested in that position at all. And we're kind of Paris Campbell. I think is cool.
So before we move off here,
there's one more team I wanted to mention.
Okay, please.
He didn't write back though. Seattle. Seattle. I think Seattle can be in the mix again as a wild card team next year. Absolutely. The NFC West is down. If we want to talk about route, Cardinals are going to be trashed. Kyler Murray might not even play this year.
Sure.
The Rams, I have no faith in the Rams this year at all.
So the point I was going to make is, and it's not on the Seahawks, is there's one division we haven't mentioned tonight.
There's one division as a whole that we have not mentioned. Oh yeah, they're terrible.
Right, but someone's making the playoffs and getting a home game.
such bullshit, dude.
I like that listen, it's rare that you get seasons like this. I like that fighting for the division means something.
I agree.
That's my counter to that.
Yeah, but is it really fighting for the division when at this point those?
But we're also assuming that every single one of those teams is going to be ass.
Yes, yeah, no, 100%. But what I'm trying to argue is that is it really necessarily fighting for the division when that makes up 35% of your schedule? Divisional games make up 35% of your schedule.
It does when not every game that the games you play against your division mean more, but you're still jockeying.
They don't,
you're not
though.
playing each other.
They don't, because overall record decides the division, not divisional record.
Right. But what I'm saying is I like that. Yeah, but that's what winning your division is who has the best record in your division.
So, but what
I get what you're saying, head to head. Head to head's the tiebreaker.
Yeah, sure. Head to head's the tiebreaker. But the argument that you made was that you're fighting for the division.
Yeah, winning the division.
Yeah, you're winning the division by virtue of beating teams not in your division, is what I'm arguing.
Right, but if we're talking about the worst division in sports, is not every game you play probably against a team that's better?
I mean, potentially, sure. I mean, AFC South, you could argue a couple of teams in there.
Even at the worst case,
I feel better about Carolina than I do the Panthers, or excuse me, than the Cardinals. I feel better about Carolina than I do the Texans. I feel better about Carolina than I could continue down the list, but not much further. But
that's what I'm saying.
But
what I'm saying too, though, is like we talked about path. We talked about hey, what does it mean to be in the power rankings? And even in honorable mentions, we didn't even touch on a division. How wild is that?
And that's kind of getting to my point in that I don't think that division winners should get you a playoff game.
Well, it's not even get you a playoff game, Corey. It's get you a home playoff.
Home playoff, even more atrocious, even more egregious. That is
so I agree with it. I could be talked off of the home part of it, but you'll never talk me out of not, because that's a qualifier, right? Like we love golf, right?
Yeah.
Does Vijay Singh deserve to play in the Masters? No,
absolutely.
No, he doesn't. But he won it one time, and that's a qualification of getting.
Well, in. So to me, that's why I say he deserves to play. He
right, but won. That's okay.
Does Jack deserve it? No.
Well, he does. I mean,
watch your mouth.
He gets to tee off first every weekend. I'm just saying, I like.
What fucking day is it? No, I'm just kidding. We love Jack.
That is important to me. I think winning your division is a big deal.
I could compromise in that you are in the playoffs. However, you do not get to host. I think record should trump division winning in terms of who hosts a playoff game.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to back off of it because okay.
Why should a less than 500 team, which arguably could come out of the NFC South right now? Let me put this out there. Let's say what's probably the toughest division in the NFC right now. I know it's hard. It's hard because the NFC is down right now.
Probably. I mean, it's
NFC
probably
East.
Still I'd say the West.
You think so?
Oh, no, it's
Eagles,
Cowboys, yeah. But then you got
Giants are a fringe team.
Yeah.
I would say
no, you're right. You're right. I'll take these.
So let's say that, and it's very likely that the Eagles go, I don't know, let's be conservative here and say 12-5, right? And then let's say that the Cowboys go 10-7 this season. I'm being conservative in those estimates because they both overachieved those numbers last season.
Sure.
Let's say that happens. Who is more deserving of hosting a playoff game? The 10-6 Cowboys or how many fucking games? The 8-9 Panthers or the 8-9 Falcons, Saints. Plug any NFC South team in there. Why? Why do you get to, because you beat a shitty division? You're better. You're the best team. You're the smartest kid with Down syndrome. Like what the fuck are we doing here?
No, that's not what it is at all. I mean, if you're the Cowboys going up against the Eagles all year, you have to win that division. That's how you win it. So every game you're looking at the playoffs as a whole for sure. But I like knowing that I can be 3-team focused for the season. That's all that matters. Anything outside of this is nothing. And the NFL does the best job of take anybody's fan base. Who are your rivals? I don't know who are the 3 other teams in my division. They play twice every year. Once on my field, once on your field. That's the evenest way you can do it. So the Chiefs go and play an Arrowhead last year, right? They win it. That's was that last year or was that
the Bengals?
Yeah.
The Bills played in Arrowhead. Yeah,
the Bills played in Arrowhead, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get that every season. There's going to be a discrepancy of who's home, who's away. So I like that when it comes to the division, it is as chalk as it can be. I play once on your field. I play once on my field. And I know
in terms of matchups, it is. But my argument is that if that's going to be the case, then division record should take precedent over overall record.
No.
Then it's only 35%. It's only 35% of your schedule,
which is a giant chunk of it.
But there's a bigger chunk. So
let's put it. So let's take the reverse of it.
Your standing within your division is weighted 65% by non-divisional games and 35% by divisional games. That means non-divisional games, by logic and math, are more important than divisional games.
No.
What?
But listen, Corey.
You can go 0-6 in divisional games and still win your division.
Yeah, you can. That rarely happens. It also rarely happens that a team that's like under 500 makes the playoffs and wins a Super Bowl.
The Bengals went 0-3 in the division to start the season and then won the division this last year.
Okay, great. So they went 500. So by your metric, would they have won the division last year?
What I'm arguing is not how you decide who wins the division. My point is more so based on the fact that just because you win your division should not guarantee you a home playoff game.
But it's making it weighted. So the overall, your record is what dictates your season, right?
Yes.
Overall, you win your division. Okay, great. Now, how did you do against the other division winners? Not as good. Okay, so I don't have home field advantage against the 1 or the 2 seed.
Sure.
Or maybe the 3 seed, the 3 seed. Reverse it to the end of the season where you have the team that has the X next to their logo and they have the season wrapped up, right? They're benching their starters. So now team gets a win at the end of the season because, X team isn't trying. Do they now deserve to get the home playoff game just because, you know what I mean? Like that kind of shit happens too. Like it's never going to be perfect, but sure. I like the fact that the division means something. And if you are the worst wild card team, meaning the one we extended just a couple years ago to get 7 in here, do you deserve to have a playoff game? No, you're lucky.
You won't by statistics. You won't get a home playoff.
But
game.
What I'm saying is the team that is playing the home, the worst home division team, is a team that wouldn't even have made the playoffs 4 years ago.
The team that would be playing the worst home, the 7 plays the 2 in the NFL, and then the 5 plays the.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Okay.
So what I'm saying is, like, my argument is that if you're the 5 Dallas Cowboys in this example at 10-6, and then you have to go on the road and play Carolina, the 4 who's 8-9 or worse, right? We've seen a 7-9 team host a playoff game out of this very division that we're talking about, by the way. A 7-9 team host a playoff game over a 11-5 back when it was 16 games, 11-5 team. And that just, it doesn't, if that's the case, then when you expand it out to 18 games, you play everybody 3 times. You know what I mean? You play your division rivals 3 times, and make it to where the person, if somebody swept the first 2 games, they get the home team, they get the home game for the 3rd game or something like that. Weight the division more. That's all I'm arguing. And I liken it to, like, if you could blend the structure of the NBA playoffs and the NFL playoffs together, in that NBA playoffs is seeded by overall record only. The only problem I have with the NBA playoffs is there's no reseeding like there is in the NFL. I love that the NFL reseeds. You earn the number 1 overall seed. You get the easiest path to the Super Bowl all the time.
I think the
like
biggest fix there is the number 1 seed gets to draft the team they play.
The number 1 seed gets to draft the team that they play. Explain that. Sorry.
So the number, let's just say in a perfect, so you got 1 through 7.
Uh-huh.
You know, statistically speaking, the 1 team is probably going to pick the 7 seed, right? But let's just say some team is
they get a bye. They get a bye.
Oh, okay, so they would get to draft in the first round. So in the first round, it would be the number 2 seed that gets to draft. Number 1 overall. Maybe there's a team that's walking in.
So you're saying this is your solution. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Your solution is that the number 2 seed, we're getting off the seeding argument because we're not getting anywhere on that one. We're talking about how to decide who plays whom.
Pick the team they play.
And this is decided by division winners.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
Or you do it by record. But if you're the 4 team, you know that you're not getting
whoever's left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I like that a lot, actually.
So let's say it's the first round and you have the 2 seed and they pick not the 7, but the 6 because they have an injured quarterback coming into the playoffs.
Or the 4 because they're the worst team in the playoffs.
Right, exactly. and then it's just based on, so obviously the 2 seed is going to have home field over the 4. So home field is actually designated by your seed and not necessarily.
And seed is dictated by overall record. You're saying not by division winning?
Yes.
I can compromise on that. I can do that.
I love the idea of giving bulletin
calling out
material.
Another team.
Yeah, you have to like WWE. I want The Rock. Like, do you
Sure
write that on the bulletin board?
Oh fuck, that's awesome. Actually,
the Panthers wanted to play us.
I love that. Actually,
okay, we found it. We found common ground. It's possible.
Yeah. Fuck, man. Good for us. If you're just strolling by, we appreciate you guys coming by. The Generous Degenerates, presented by Rally Towel Sports and the Mafia Sports Report. We appreciate Tommy and Bill's Mafia for syndicating us on his YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to both. We are also available wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Pod, Amazon. Are we on Amazon, Aaron? We're on fucking Amazon. Jeff Bezos runs
Bezos.
Jeffrey. So you can catch us wherever. Go ahead and subscribe to those and hit those little notifications so you know when we upload the audio from these. And follow us on all social media. The tiki-takis are popping off, boys. We're gaining steam on there for sure. All right, Aaron. We just did 90 minutes on NFL and I couldn't be happier.
And there's no games.
I couldn't be happier. All right, man. Let's get into some basketball here. NBA conference finals. Before last night, we were like, "Oh yeah, we know who the finals are."
Still very confident.
And then last night happened. Nothing's changed. Heat Nuggets. We're destined for that.
Yeah. So I was joking with you last week. I was like, I don't see a world where the Celtics don't win. And then it immediately flipped very, very quickly. I also made the joke that my wife was rooting for the chicken nuggets versus the seltzers, and now she's rooting for spicy chicken nuggets.
Yeah, spicy nuggets, dude. Yeah.
So yeah, listen, I mean, this is the Nuggets to lose regardless of how the East ends. For the Heat to go up the way that they did is just phenomenal, but Jokic is just playing at a different big boy level. He is the best player in the league, hands down. And not only is he the best player in the league individually, he is making guys on his team do things they never could do before.
They don't even want to do. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Aaron Gordon, fine when he was on the Magic. He was good. He mostly known as a dunk champion.
Yeah. I was just going to say he was
he's making
one-trick pony. He's really good at dunking.
Really good athlete.
Yeah.
Yo, the passes this guy's making, he thinks he's Jokic. Like he's like, oh, you can do that. All right, sweet, dude. Let's just do some of these.
Yeah,
their passing is so crisp. They're good enough on defense to make you need to earn some points. But the thing with them is Jamal Murray is finally healthy, and the risk that they took on Michael Porter Jr. like 5 years ago is paying off now. Where he was the first pick outside the lottery, where if he was a healthy player would have been a top 5 pick, and now we're seeing the fruits of that. Jamal Murray had been injured the last 2 playoffs. This Nuggets team has always been viewed as this disappointing type team. They've never really been fully healthy. And even then, they were still kind of in it because Jokic is that good. For the Heat, it is just what were we saying last week, Corey? How do the Heat win this series?
The Celtics play down and the coaching. Yeah.
It's coaching. And it's very, very evident. Also, again, I don't understand how an NBA team can't figure out a 2-minute stretch of zone on defense, which is like such a power up to your roster from a regrouping your energy stance that I don't think people realize. Like in the NHL, Corey, you got really, really quick line changes, right?
Yeah.
That's how you get your energy back.
Yep.
In the NBA, there really isn't that. You can take them off the court,
call time,
but then your best offensive players are no longer on the field, and it's there's not really a really good way to describe that comparatively to the NHL, other than running a zone effectively somehow. No one wastes their energy on defense, and now that's why Jimmy Butler is playing 42 minutes a game and looking like Michael Jordan. It's insane.
He's playing like the best player in basketball right now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he is, but he's playing that way. Because like I hear what you're saying, but he is so clearly the best B+ I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, because he's still not a good. If A is like top 5, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's definitely punching above his weight class, but he's always been a top 15 player. He's just the best one at rising to the moment. Because
I was just going to say, is he like one of the best playoff basketball players we've seen in like the last like 3 to 5 years?
Yes.
Just the way that he turns it on, as we approach Memorial Day, seemingly is amazing. I want to get to something though, because I do think the Heat are I think it's very difficult for the Celtics to win 4 straight. Obviously, I feel really, really good about my Heat plus 1.5 now. Obviously, that's
you should, because it's cashed.
Yeah, it's cashed. So that bet hit for sure.
That's so funny. That's how betting works. So until it actually hits your account, you're like, I don't know,
man. So another interesting thing. Are you seeing this drama that's being reinvigorated on social media between the Nuggets and the Heat at a game that transpired? I believe it was a home game for Denver against the Heat. Jokic took a cheap shot on one of the Miami Heat players, knocked him down to the ground. I can't remember who the Heat players were. Then at one point, Jimmy Butler saying, I'll meet you outside. I'll meet you back in the tunnel. I'll meet you back in the tunnel. Basically calling Jokic out. Jokic's brothers were in the stand. They're fucking getting all fired up. And then there's an image of the entire Miami Heat roster basically standing outside the Denver Nuggets locker room, ready to just absolutely throw down. Are we on the verge of one of the more physical finals, just based on this mentality, that the way that both of these teams kind of play, a little bit more hard-nosed than we've seen of the finesse of, like, for instance, Boston or Golden State?
Golden State would be the
yes, absolutely. I was trying to reference a team out of both conferences. Sure. There. Are we set it up to be witnessing potentially one of the more physical finals matchups that we've seen in a long time?
Yeah, potentially. I think a big piece of it, and this probably won't speak to the physicality, but just the availability of Tyler Hero, I think will be a big part of it. And hats off to Miami for finding these guys. And
Eric Spoelstra.
Boy, what a slap in the face was it when the stat was, I think it was, the Celtics had like 35 points and the Heat had like 60. So they did the stat of Celtics, like field goal points, Miami Heat players that went undrafted, 37 points. I'll send you the screenshot of it. It's like the funniest thing I've ever seen on a broadcast, because they'll find these storylines that you never even thought existed.
Yeah.
They just listen. I've never seen a team like this in any sport. We're talking about the 8th seed.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm trying to think.
Well, think about the fact that if you extrapolate that to the NFL, the Heat wouldn't have even made the playoffs.
Right.
Also, take the play-in game They had to come back and win in the fourth quarter against the Chicago Bulls to even make it into this playoffs.
Wow.
Like,
And they're
this is a
one
team-
game away, obviously, tomorrow in Boston.
And what I'll say is, and it's something we've said all year for the NBA, this is the most parity-laden season I've ever seen.
Took the words right out of my mouth. This is atypical for the NBA. Typically, it's a
haven't seen
wash in the first round, other than the 4-5 game, right? Like this is something that we just don't see in NBA playoffs, and
It's exciting when
it's
a 4 seed
refreshing.
makes
It's so refreshing.
Yeah, it's exciting when a 4 seed makes the conference finals or something.
Yes,
You're like, oh, who's this frisky team? Oh, it's LeBron, and he rested half the year. That's right.
and we're literally watching 1-8.
Yeah. I think, in my opinion,
Or I'm sorry, no, is it Boston wasn't the one 2-8, right?
2. Yeah.
2-8.
Because,
Sorry.
but here's the thing: the Heat beat the 1 seed in the first round in the Bucks. I still think it's just the Nuggets all day. The Lakers series where they swept.
So why don't you double down on your finals bet?
Because I'm going to do it in other ways. It'll probably be. I'm about to pull the trigger on a Jokic MVP bet because I'm going to get better odds on that than I am
On a
just
finals MVP, right?
Yeah, right. Because I'm going to get better odds on that than I am just the Nuggets to an outright, because inherently you're going to the odds
is there's more opportunity for other people to rise up. I'm sure.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah. So that, maybe take some spreads. The Nuggets haven't lost a home playoff game yet. That's impressive.
Mhm.
There's different ways to do it. I actually hedged a little bit.
One thing that I'm thinking we will absolutely see is typically when and I've been doing this a lot through the playoffs, is series handicapping. And typically in the same sense that you see a hockey spread, it's going to be 1.5 typically the whole way through. It's never going to move up 1.5. Similarly to baseball, in that a baseball spread is typically going to be half a run at all times, with juice moving one way or the other. So I anticipate this will be Miami plus 1.5 games or Boston minus 1.5 games. The juice, though, I am thinking for Miami is going to be very, very appealing. I'm like 190, 210 plus 1.5 for Miami in this series. If that's the case, Aaron, if we're creeping up on a 2 unit net on a wager like that, is that something you would entertain?
Yeah, I would. I would entertain it, obviously.
At least kick the tires on it, see if it makes sense.
I'd kick the tires on it for sure.
Because you could hit both your finals bet and that, right?
Right. It's how that's going to be what I'm going to try to do, is see how I can double dip on this. And I took, what's crazy to me is it was 2-0 Miami Heat. They were plus 500 to win the finals. So I had a $25 bet on the Nuggets at plus 850. Honestly, the one thing I should mention too, though, is it was an Ohio sign up free bet. I had a $25 free bet. So I just put $25 on the Heat before the 2-0. And now I'm, assuming. Here's one thing I want to throw by you, though. The Boston Celtics right now to win the finals. So let's actually even go more granular than that. The Boston Celtics right now to win the series is plus 210, which means they're going to win 4 games in a row. The Heat are at minus 260. Currently, if we take a look at the
yesterday, I believe it was minus 1,000 before that game, by the way.
Right. We're going to take a look at the Charles Schwab Challenge, where Scottie Scheffler is on the top of the list, and the next closest person is Jordan Spieth. There's a lot of guys who aren't playing. Scottie Scheffler is plus 400 to win this tournament, and then the next closest person is Jordan Spieth at plus 1,400. Gun to your head. Gun to
my head.
Would you think that the Celtics will come back from 3-0, or that Scottie Scheffler wins the Charles Schwab Challenge?
Sorry, my headphones unplugged there.
That's
but
okay.
You said Scotty Scheffler
So gun
wins
to your
or Celtics
gun to your
win.
head. Gun to your head. The Celtics come back from 3-0 for the first time ever.
Or Scotty Scheffler wins.
Or Scotty Scheffler wins the Charles Schwab Challenge.
Celtics come back.
Oh, that's insane.
No, Celtics come back. I think that there are so many more variables in the golf bet versus the Celtics coming
but
back.
it also hasn't started.
What? Sure, but those games are like games 1 through 4 have no implications on 5, 6, and 7.
It does because all Miami has to do is trip into a win.
Literally the field of 100 other golfers have to do is have 4 good days.
Yeah, but Scheffler's not a fucking heater.
No, he's great, but he also didn't just win the PGA Championship. He didn't win the Masters.
Came in second, but
yeah, but second gets a fucking bullet in my head, Aaron. That's what I'm trying to say. Scotty Scheffler can play amazing and still lose.
But now take the live guys out of it, and now take a bunch of other guys who actually compete out of it.
Isn't that insane that's well, yeah, but the live guys aren't there, so it's going to be easier. We would have never had that conversation 2 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Never.
That's
But now the way that they've performed in the last 2 majors, like, oh shit. Isn't that let's dive into that a little bit here before we get into some NHL talk, because we're going on coming up on 2 hours here. How good is this for the live tour? How amazing is it that one of their Herald boys, Brooks Koepka, one of the highest paid members on tour, won a major?
I don't know how good it is for live. It's really good for the networks. And what I mean by that is we're going to be coming up on another major here, the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
That has no PGA affiliation. The only guys that there's no PGA affiliation for the U.S. Open.
Huge field.
They can broadcast this however they want to. This last one was the PGA Championship. You had some players who were eligible for sure, but it wasn't as many as the Masters. The live is broadcasted on the CW, dude. I don't give a shit about it. I haven't watched it. I didn't watch it after the Masters. I'm not going to watch it after this. But it's really good for the networks because it's just added drama, added storyline.
Let me rephrase my question in a way that gets more to what I'm looking at. It's not a question. I'll just make a statement. This makes recruiting for the live that much easier. Look, you're worried about not playing as much. You're going to your game's not going to be as good. How do they judge who the greatest golfers ever are? By how many majors you've won. They don't look at tour wins. Yeah, that's exciting when you look at, how many Tiger has won and how many Jack have won and Jordan, how many tour wins these guys had. But that's secondary to the majors. You can come to the live, you can play less, paid more, guaranteed money, and still go out and win majors. Look, Brooks did it. Phil was right there. He was one of the oldest guys out there. Phil was right there. DJ was right there at the PGA. I just think in terms of recruiting, what if they go out and throw $4 million at Michael Block?
Well, that's different. So there were 2 points I was going to make. Is one, I feel like live hungry hippo style gobbled up. They were like, this is our budget. This is what we have. This is what we're going to do. And I understand it's like Saudi back.
Oh, I get where you're going. I see where you're going.
Who else are they going to get? They grab Brooke. And who else really qualifies under you're a major winner and you want to come play here? It's not going to be Fitzpatrick. Like he's adamantly against it.
It's
not going to be Rory. It's not going to be Tiger.
No.
It's not going to be Scotty. It's not going to be Rahm. The only way that works in the world that you're describing is somebody who is already major qualified and doesn't have, I don't want to say that drive, but like Tony Finau, for instance, hasn't won a major.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense for him to do it because I'd take the payday.
But then he can't play in the majors.
You have had to already previously do it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about guys that have kind of.
He would still be in like the world rankings for like a year, but like
Jason Day.
That makes sense because that's somebody who has
Fringe, right?
flashed. He's flashed this year, but he's been
Mhm.
injured for the last 2.
Mhm.
And now he's like coming back down where I'm like, I was betting him all year.
Mhm.
And now I'm like, fuck, he's not the
Yeah,
same
it's just
guy.
I just thought it was interesting to see, obviously,
That's a really good one, Corey. Jason Day
that
is a really good example.
it just makes it a little bit a little bit more interesting when a live guy wins a major
Right.
now. And
And then
so
the reverse side of it is someone like Hovland, right?
yeah,
Who is right there. Or Xander, right? Right there.
or
Always right there.
like a guy that's been torn around in the PGA for like a Billy Horschel,
Right.
or a Ricky Fowler even at this point.
But for Koepka, who is 1 win away from the career Grand Slam, yeah, that makes sense because he was injured for 2 years.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure whether he was going to be back, take the payday.
Yep.
But now he's always going to be there on the weekends that matter
Absolutely.
for the end of time.
Absolutely. All right, we got one last thing here that we got to wrap up in the next 14 minutes. I think we can do it. Stanley Cup Conference Finals. They're just making me look really smart because I've been beating on my chest telling people to watch these fucking playoff games, and they have been nothing short of amazing. We are currently in game 7 of the conference finals. Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Florida Panthers are currently up on the Carolina Hurricanes 3-2 with 10 to go in the third. I want to hurry up and get this podcast done so I can go watch it, see if Carolina can hang on. But the first 4 games all went to overtime, Aaron. The first 4 games of the conference finals all went to overtime. The first of which went to 4 fucking overtimes and was on from 8 p.m. to 1:30 in the morning, where Florida took a 1-0 lead versus Carolina. I mean,
wasn't that in Carolina?
In Carolina, they
Can you
won.
imagine staying for that whole game
And then losing. Dude, that's exactly what, like, right after I saw that it was going even to like the third overtime, I was just like, you have to win this game. You cannot lose this game. And we're seeing it right now, aren't we? I mean, Florida is about to sweep Carolina. And the question is, like, can this storybook run continue? Obviously, knocking down the behemoth in Boston, knocking out who was, heralded as the second best team in the Eastern Conference in Toronto. Arguably could have been Carolina. Well, they're 1 game away from fucking sweeping them out of the playoffs right now.
It's like getting punched in the stomach where you lose your breath. And it's not a harder punch than if you got punched in the shoulder, but it somehow hurts worse.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you just can't do anything.
Yes. That is a perfect, you get punched in the jejunum.
Yeah, exactly. As Monix would say.
Absolutely. And on the other side of the coin, we've got Vegas. We've got another 3-0 lead here, and Vegas is up 3-0 on Dallas. My future is hanging on by a thread. Vegas opened up at home 1-2. What do we say about series in sports, Aaron? It's not a series
until you win on the away team wins on the home court.
Exactly. It's not a series till the home team loses, and that happened last night. Dallas is now down 3 games. Dude, it pretty much is at this point. But but here's the crazy thing about these conference finals, and I feel like you can make the argument a little bit for the Lakers, even though they got swept. There was only really like one of those games where like they got their ass beat. Like even the
Lakers played. That's why I think the Nuggets are going to win it all, is because
you think they played a harder competition.
I think the Lakers played really, really well, and the Nuggets were that much better.
Sure. So the thing about these NHL conference finals is, like, all of these games have been decided by 1 goal. They've been so close. So it's not like Dallas is like getting their teeth kicked in. They're literally like, well, last night, actually, they got the fucking shit kicked. That is 4-0 loss. But prior to that, obviously, with all these games going in overtime, coming home, you're Dallas, you're thinking like, dude, we're 2 shots away from being up 2-0 rather than down 2-0. Right. You know what I mean? And the same has been true for Carolina. They've lost every game by 1. Carolina's literally 3 shots away, or rather 3 blocks away
Yeah.
from being up in this series 3-0. And I think that just leads to the level of competition that you really get when it comes to these Stanley Cup playoffs. And I think we are destined for an amazing series regardless. I mean, if by some chance by some chance Carolina pulls this out tonight, they got about 9 minutes left in the third period as we're recording this podcast right now. If by some chance they force it, get a late goal, which plenty of time to do it, get this thing to overtime, extend it to game 5, which they get to go back home into the hurricane shelter, as I've just now dubbed it, and try and get this thing back to a 1-game deficit. That amazing storylines, and it can absolutely happen. Hockey is such a sport to where, like, if you get on like a burner, dude, you can just run and just start running through people and just compiling wins, especially in these playoffs, as we've seen Florida do over these last few games. So it's been fun. Have you gotten a chance to I know it's hard because you're
tough, man.
You're such a what's the term for like a basketball nut? Like, you got like a lace head, or like, a dimple head if you're into golf.
You don't watch 30 Rock, do you?
I mean,
the old leather pumpkin.
The leather pumpkin.
No, I mean,
you're just so into basketball, and they're on at the same time.
Yeah,
like, you're gonna watch basketball. I get that.
I'm gonna watch basketball, yeah, because what do we talk about here is about gambling. So
sure,
I have a grasp on that. I'll take your opinion and your breakdowns and put money towards that, but it's only because you're giving me advice to do so. You know what I mean?
I've got, in these conference finals, I have got fucking run through like a.
Yeah, luckily I haven't for this part, but
yeah,
I'm more so like, even like on the baseball side of it. Like, I watch baseball, but I'm, by the way, Orioles put up 3 this inning to get themselves back in it.
Did they now?
Took the lead.
Yeah, they took the lead. The Orioles are up, baby.
Let's
Fade
go.
the streak. Fade the streak.
Five
in the inning. And well.
5 in the inning.
Let's fucking go, dude. If you guys are just
while you were talking earlier, I was looking at it and I was like, 3. They put up 3, but they didn't have any outs, and it was like first and second. And I was like, all right, we're back.
If you guys are just tuning in, we appreciate you all dropping by. We're getting towards the end of the podcast tonight, but you can catch the full audio tomorrow on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. But subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, whichever one you watch your like rabbit hole videos that you just can't stop watching at night or during work or whatever. We're doing Fade the Streak.
Oh shit, I have to work now?
Yeah, we're doing Fade the Streak. So basically what that premise is, we wait till a baseball team gets to 5 wins in a row or 5 losses in a row. At this point in the season, it's a given. At some point, they're going to either win a game or lose a game again. Like, if they're on a win streak, eventually they're going to lose throughout this baseball season. So we bet on them to lose once they get to 5 games and consistently start doubling down until it eventually hits. So you got to be willing to nut up on the betting.
I just keep thinking of when the fucking Indians won 22 in a row, and I'm like,
yeah, dude, I'm terrified. I'm terrified of that, dude. Just like getting in there sweating.
So is there a cut your losses part?
45 units.
What's the longest you've had to go?
Yeah, good point. Good question. So I think the longest I had to go.
9?
I think like 8 or 9. So I started betting. Yeah, it was 9. It was 9.
And
so
I mean, from 5 to 9.
Yeah, started betting at 5, and then I drew it out to like 9, and then it finally hit. So I had to double down 3 times.
Is that the Rays?
Yeah, it was the Rays to start the year. Yeah, I was like, eventually they're gonna lose, right? Yeah, and so eventually that hit.
They did it 162-0. Corey's homeless.
Divorced and sad. And
he got divorced before the All-Star break.
Yeah. What? It just stopped. I can't. So tonight we are fading the New York Yankees, who just recently got on a 5-game winning streak. We took the Orioles money line. It is currently the top of the 7th. The Orioles are up to bat, and they are, or you get plus odds on the Orioles. And typically you get that because Vegas is riding the streak. So typically you get plus odds and don't necessarily have to double down. Like, for instance, on the Oakland Athletics, Didn't have to double down. I know you're sketching.
It's the only one I won't ride with.
I get it. The Oakland Athletics, we bet on them yesterday on a 5-game losing streak. They lost. They are on a 6-game losing streak now. The juice on that bet was it was like plus 228. I didn't need to double down to cover my wager from yesterday. I bet 1 unit. I'm going to get paid out 3+ units. I'm going to net more than 1 unit back into my bankroll on the bet. So that's the strategy there. You want to minimize your betting, only double down so much that you net 1 unit. You don't want to just start.
Do you start with 1 unit?
Yeah, every time.
Okay.
Just to protect myself from getting to a point where it gets too crazy.
So while I'm rolling with you on this, I'm starting at half a unit.
Okay.
Because
that's not a bad strategy.
I'm protecting the
bankroll.
the run too. Because if I have to keep doubling down, I want to start at half.
I've only had to make a deposit 1 time to cover my double down, and then I immediately withdrew that deposit.
I don't want to be there. That's the. Now here's the other thing too, Corey, and let's.
The Orioles are now up 7-5. By the way,
I do not want you to get to this point. But is there a pull to shoot moment?
That's a really good question, Aaron.
No.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if because at the end of the day, I know it's going to hit. It will. At this point in the season. So let me add the caveat to that. I will not be accepting any news streaks by about the August 20th. I'm going to stop.
Okay.
I'm going to stop, and I'm going to start getting ready to bet on football season. This betting strategy is for somebody who mildly enjoys baseball, doesn't really know a whole lot about every single team, but what you're really doing is you're trying to grow that bankroll to get us to football season so we can start laying
bet some over-unders, dude.
That's all I'm really trying to do right now is getting the bankroll big for football season so that I can, throw it around. And yeah, dude, the Orioles right now, they're piling on. They got a duck on second base right now, 7-5. We're about to get kicked off here on the stream. We're coming up on 2 hours. Anything else to close this out, Aaron?
No, I think we covered it all, man. We spent a lot of time on football, which was phenomenal.
It was awesome.
It felt so good.
It was awesome. If you guys didn't catch, if you're just tuning in now, we appreciate you guys for stopping by. Again, subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. We are mildly active on Twitter, and that's going to keep increasing the closer football gets. And yeah, follow us on TikTok as well for some more Fade the Streak. But take care of yourselves and each other. Don't forget to get your pet spayed and neuter. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Bob.